It's the weekly 30/30 trading list. We're finding the best momentum companies on the ASX and then identifying the companies that are set to run. We're doing this with Gary Glover from Novus Capital, who's been through the list and has picked out his favourites for the week. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fantastic, Chris. How you going?
Well, before air, you said you were pretty excited about this list, so there must be something good in there. What are you seeing it?
Yeah, no, you told me to make it quick this week, and I looked at the list and thought, oh, it's going to be hard because this is a really good list. So there's so much happening in this list. It's yeah, but thought we'd just sort of touch on that rally there last night. I know you and I have been chatting there, but markets obviously had a big pop here, big move in the market. And look, if anyone sort of hadn't sort of looked at our video we covered a couple of weeks ago, we covered the inflation in the 40s and the 70s. We looked at those markets in particular. And as we said there a few weeks back, that inflation doesn't need to disappear, it doesn't need to cool right off. All it needs to do is slow slightly. And we I think it was one of those periods in the past, I think it was in the 70s, I think it went from like 8.2 down to 7.2, which is hardly a cool off really, still when you're sort of sitting in 7, but that will be enough to get a really big rip your face off type of rally here. So we don't need to see inflation disappearing. All we need to see is inflation cooling, and that'll be enough for the market to get excited by that. So, gone from 8.1 down to 7.7. I don't think that's a great number still. 7.7 is still pretty high.
You look in history over 100 years,
yeah.
It's still going to be pretty high.
Yeah, but that gets the market excited that maybe inflation's peaked here. And yeah, if we get another sort of, numbers sort of slightly lower, if we get a 7.5 or a 7.3 or something, which is still not great, it'll still get the market really excited. You can have, we saw in the 40s and the 70s, go back and look at those charts we covered a few weeks back. Some of the rallies are phenomenal in that period there. Market can go up and down really big here. So should not be surprised by that rally last night, considering what's happened in the past there. But let's get into the list here. This is a cracking list. There's in the quarterly momentum there's quite a few stocks sort of under takeover there. I think Origin Energy yesterday, Nitro, Elmo. So there's quite a few that have popped up, quite a bit here under takeover. So we'll just sort of skip those because sort of like not too much we can sort of add to those. That Origin Energy, the only thing I mentioned there is that the non-binding. And we're seeing we've seen a lot of these non-binding disappear. I mean, like the Ramsay was a non-binding at 88. I think it opened at 84, and then it just sort of, disappeared. The only thing with Origin there is I think Brookvale's been around a few times, so they have sort of been interested for a while. That's probably the only plus there. But just see those non-bindings, you can have a look at the books and just walk away. It's not, so just got to be careful, cautious with those. I was sort of definitely I was tempted. I literally convinced most of my clients to sort of sell into that yesterday. I thought it was, to get out of jail, not get out of jail, but, if you pick them at 4 and sell them at 8, geez, it's okay. Let's not be too greedy here. I just think that you're probably only 10 or 15% chance of actually succeeding, in my opinion, based on the numbers in the past. So I just think that's a sum of risks there. But first one that I liked on the list was RDY here. Again, only because it's sort of, this is probably, again, another sort of takeover sort of move here, but we have had that sort of fundamental change here and a bit of a rally, but then we've sort of popped and consolidated. So sometimes when they sort of consolidate like this, they can go again. So so that one sort of had a nice little pullback here. So potentially that could rally again, just because it's pulled back on that light volume. ADT, just thought I'd sort of show this here. This is sort of just there's a nice little cup and sort of handles in this sort of formation there, and sort of see this is had a pullback here. Nice little, you can call this a little BCP sort of in there as well, Chris. Sort of pullback, second pullback, nice and tight.
Super tight one.
Yeah, but it is a nice good cup and handles there because that's sort of nice high in the range. Didn't come back and pop through there. So lots of cup and handles and lots of VCPs here this week as well. AMA is another. This potentially is another little cup and handle in here. Some good volume on the ups here. pullback on light volume, good volume on the up, light volume on the pullback, some good volume again. So, although this is a small stock here, breaking above this level here is a pretty good sign here. So that does look pretty good there. So that's a good little technical pattern, although it's only a small stock. Does look pretty good. AGG, this is a little pop here, so not too much in here, but we have had some pretty good volume here. So this is probably one that I just suggested put on your list there. If just because this has had a really jump out of the box volume, and it's
to
now
kind of change your character you talk about, is it?
Yeah, that's right. So it's sort of now broken a swing high as well. So we're probably looking for maybe some sort of consolidation in this one here, and looking to sort of come in later on. PPT, this is why sometimes you just got to follow the list rather than follow your fundamentals. I sort of didn't think that this was a real. I just didn't think Regal could get this done here. To be honest, I just didn't seem like a good deal here, but hasn't sort of stopped the market getting excited here, and then they've increased their offer. So so this has meant Perpetual's gone up, Pendle's gone quite a bit lower. That's pretty interesting. Pendle coming off quite a bit. This goes to show here. These are lessons here of leaders lead, as we know. So they continue to keep leading here. I mean, just one example here is that NEU, which is number 20 on the list. Again, it's in the leading sector. Obviously, when I talk about medical, biomedical, that's sort of been one of the leading sectors in the US. It's held up pretty strong here. It's just kept going up here. This is the whole basis of what we're doing here, is that these stocks that lead, they continue. It's the whole premise. We're not trying to buy low, sell high. We're trying to buy high and sell higher. These stocks sort of keep, these leading stocks, they continue to lead and keep pushing higher. And so it's just interesting that stock has really moved. Within the list there, we've got PRU, which is number 15. Really powerful rally here. I mean, that's Perseus Gold is basically back up near the high here. It's pretty powerful for gold stock here in a market which hasn't really loved gold. But we've really seen an explosive move in a lot of the gold stocks here this week. I just think you've seen something really impulsive, seeing some strong volume, seeing the US dollar turn down, just really like what's happening there with gold here. So pretty powerful sort of stuff here. Northern Star's been one of the sort of stronger ones in here. Again, really powerful rally in here. Hard to chase those two. Obviously, they've had a pretty big move, so I'll be sort of probably looking for consolidations there. Paradigm. So this is pretty interesting here. This is a big VCP here, Chris. So good volume on this move here. Nice deep pullback. Good volume again through here. A nice pullback here and pretty light volume. And we've had volume come in again. So just looking for another consolidation here. So this is a big VCP pattern here. These are pretty interesting patterns. They can come in, just trying to remember, I think it was Rhythm Bio there 2 years ago, did sort of something similar in here. So they had this pullback in here.
Big rally.
VCP, see how that sort of VCP tightened in here. And then it sort of, so there was good volume in there, VCP, and then volume pop here. So just got to keep an eye on that paradigm. That's really interesting sort of setup here. It is a leading sector. We know biotech is one of the sectors that's just leading in the States. And that's got to, look how impulsive, look how strong those rallies are. So that definitely caught my eye when I was looking at that. So just because it's in that sector, the leading sector there, which we sort of know we need to be trading on here. So two things in here, we've sort of got biotechs and we got gold in these lists here. So those are the two sectors that really caught my eye across the list there. Still got a few sort of precious metals in there as well. But AGY, got another VCP in here potentially, Chris. So nice pullback in here. I mean, look at that volume through there. That's strong volume into that rally.
Day after day after day, almost more volume and more range.
Pullback in here. The volume is not as strong in here. The volume a little bit okay here, but probably most of it's sort of come in near the low. The volume's gone up a gear again, So So that looks quite good actually. So another VCP, just be nice to see that tighten up here. I don't know if it's going to do that in a strong market here, but yeah. The grays here, this is interesting here because we're sort of one I missed here because this is pull back in here like a shallower pullback. And then we probably get another pullback in here. So it's a little messy. There's still a VCP pattern here, and all sort of sitting underneath the, I probably like the fact that it come up here above that swing high there. I like that. We can see here this is nice and tight in here. It's a little messy, but you can see through here. There's no volume there. No sort of, and then what have we got going here? I'm seeing some pretty strong volume here. So that looks pretty good here. So just get another sort of sort of gold stock there, looking pretty strong there. Praemium's been pretty robust. I think we covered this one the last couple of weeks. It's sort of been on the list, just sort of ticking higher here. Not, no selling going on here. It's a bit like that Air New Zealand there. Every time it sort of has a bit of a cool off, it just goes sideways. So again, that looks pretty good. I think Air New Zealand, as we said, yeah, just all that. Just every time it's had a bit of a breather, it's just gone sideways. So just not showing any sort of signs of weakness there. Tyro's a little bit the same there, though. It is sort of a bit overlapping, but the volume's definitely sort of come out of that. Probably less excited by that one, but still sort of holding up. RMS is this one hurts me personally, as I saw this false breakdown here of the low. Went to a marginal new low and then started to break up here. And look at that move there, geez, 60 to almost 90. So it's almost like a 50% move there. So, and the one that's not on the list there, which I think should be on the list, is that Computershare, which was on the list last week. I think it sort of hit our daily list there, but it's had a nice pop here. I know there's a little bit of selling here, but normally when you get a fundamental upgrade, which this was, I can see here all the brokers have all up their valuations this morning, from $30 to $33, I think. So normally, I know you sort of contracted a bit of selling the first day, but we saw there with, I think, Premier Investments and even sort of MP1 and a few other stocks that have had big upgrades there recently. They normally sort of gap up, get a bit of profit taking on the first day, but then they just tend to sort of just tick higher here for the next sort of week or two. So I just imagine that stock will just sort of tick higher here. That's kind of our quarterly list, which is pretty, a lot happening in there. So some really interesting stocks in there. So gold and biotech in particular. Paradigm obviously was a big mover for the week, number one on the weekly list. ALG was number two. Again, had a little bit of a pop there out of the range there, maybe a little early. AGG's had a big pop as well. Again, that's that change of character we talk about. So that's one to sort of keep an eye on. Regis is actually one that I quite like here. Actually, this is one I sort of did trade. So I'm holding a few of these. I just like the fact that it, I'm kind of, wouldn't say I make a mistake here, but I like this as a bit of an inverse head and shoulders here. Not that how I sort of trade that, but I just noticed the volume was pretty good on this rally. Pulled back the light volume, started to go again here, but then it did edge back here. So I think I sort of got set on here, got cut out of half of my position, and it gapped up again. And then it, so would like to have been a few more of those, but that's the way it goes here. But that still looks pretty good to me. It's sort of, this is our low here, a high low, a second high low. So we're just sort of starting to build a base here. So all these gold stocks here, if you look at the weeklies and stuff there, and this is pretty strong downtrend here. The whole thing's tightened up here. So we're now sort of got, first, second high low. So we just got the, Stan Weinstein would sort of potentially call this a sort of stage 2 breakout here for a lot of these gold stocks. That's really interesting there too. Looking at some of those, Northern Star, which is on the list as well, that's had probably a stage 2 breakout, breaking up through here as well. So just looks pretty interesting sector overall there. Looks very, very bullish. And we know in the past that high inflationary periods, we've had big moves in energy and big moves in precious metals. So it's been weird, actually, the fact that gold hasn't moved here, but maybe it's joining the party late here. But just some really interesting signs there, some really strong volume. I think even Newcrest was in, I did buy some of these too, Chris. Yeah, just again, I just love the fact that it's sort of done a lot of work here on the weekly. A little bit of a inverse head and shoulders again, but big volume sort of all down here as well. So this is sort of accumulation type here. So we're just breaking out sort of, break out of this sort of base here, you might sort of say here. That's a pretty good sign breaking out of there. So just potentially, this sort of gold here is sort of one of those ones that, as we spoke in the past there, it's sort of got the ability to really, when it goes, to keep going and sort of trend. That's what we like. And we look at evolution of the volume.
It's huge on that jump.
Yeah. I mean, evolution's had its issues there. It's obviously probably trading. You got Perseus up near the highs and Northern starting near the highs there, but that's still big volume there. It's pretty decent. So.
And is that like didn't quite do a false break, did it, or a spring down there?
No, I think it 180 and a half. Maybe you're right. Maybe it did 180. There you go.
Oh, just
yeah. So it did go half a cent, which is what you want.
It's hard to see on that chart. It goes to 480.
Yeah. You only want to see 1 cent or 2 cent or half a cent. Yeah. Doesn't matter. So this is a false break like that. Yeah, should have been bought. So yeah. Good signals, good patterns there. So that's, I mean, you look for that list there, there's just gold stocks everywhere on the weekly list. So really powerful move, the gold stocks here. IMR was another sort of biomedical, which has had a bit of a positive news there. So I think that's sort of interesting here is that big volume down there the low here. So lots of volume taking place in there. So I had a bit of a nice pop there, little consolidation there, another rally. And then this big sort of consolidation here, this sort of not super volume there, but sort of mild volume coming in here. So it's just one to keep an eye on there, just because that's the leading sector. So we need to sort of keep an eye on the sort of stocks in those leading sectors there. SFR again was sort of Sandfire Resources had a nice move there, the volume coming through there, pretty big. Another gold stock. Origin we already covered, big move there. CHN is actually one that really interests me here, Chris. Got a VCP sort of pattern in here. So whole thing sort of stayed off the lows there. This is quite a corrective. If we draw a trend line through here, we can see that we've broken above this sort of downtrend. Broken above the swing high, which is pretty good. Stayed above the 50-day moving average. So I know someone had a question there regarding what EMAs and stuff I use. I mean, to be honestly, I on this chart here is I think the 10, 20, and the 50, but the 50 is the line that I look at. That's probably, to be honest, that's probably the only one I look at. I look at price and volume and the 50-day moving average. A wise trader once said nothing good happens under the 50-day moving average, and I'd have to say sort of that rule is such a good rule that probably I'd say 95% of the time that quote is bang on the money. So yeah,
saves you being in a lot of trades that you're questionable about.
Yeah. Look, I do occasionally, probably 5% of the time I will buy stuff under the 50-day moving average, but I'd hazard to say that my success rate would be a lot higher if I just traded stocks that were above the 50-day moving average. But this is pretty cool here. This is like had a nice pullback in here, good volume into this rally, and then pull back here on very light volume again, and a nice rally here. So this is the largest correction. This is slightly smaller. We get a little, so we get a potential little VCP in here. So this is setting up. This is pretty interesting to me. So nickel copper project there. So VCP pattern. So yeah, commodities are still, buoyant depending on what sort of sector you're in there. So, that looks pretty interesting. I think there's sort of a new drilling program going on there. It's got a pretty large market cap actually, 1.7 billion. So it is a pretty big company, sort of Chalice Mining. So it's not a small player, but yeah, just the chart looks really interesting there. ARU was one that sort of popped up here, maybe a little small. IDX again, maybe a little small here as well, but had an okay rally off the lows here. Just needs to sort of show something a bit more. Just in that sort of diagnostics, again in that medical, that's probably the reason I'm just looking at it there. Sort of like this, it's a bit of a leading sector. So just want to see so far we haven't broken above a swing high. So you want to sort of see a change of character first, but just one that I sort of added to my list. SGA was sort of just a small one there. It's had a bit of a pop here. Just had this on the list here just because it's quite a new stock, new IPO. So some of these new companies should be should be some new leaders emerging in there. So one stock to keep an eye on. We mentioned Newcrest. That looks quite good. BPT looks okay as well. Bit of obviously that energy sector there, but I don't know. Seeing gold sort of starting to turn down here, and sort of I know oil starting to cool a bit as well. Probably less excited by some of those. One stock wasn't on the list there, Chris, which I'm sure might have come on the list if it was because I think it might have rallied here really late in the day rather than early in the day. Was this IVZ? So big pop there. I think like up 150% or something. So
sounds like
sure.
crypto.
Yeah, so not sure how that what happens from here, but I just know that's had a big sort of pop there and big volume there. So one to keep an eye on. But that's it. But yeah, plenty going on the list there. Lots of activity there. But yeah, so two things really impressed me there was just sort of gold has had some big moves here. So that's pretty promising for that sector. It does have the ability to sort of trend and keep going here, a bit like the energy and maybe lithium there. So that's pretty interesting. And some of those sort of biomedical there's heaps of VCPs in there, heaps of cup and handles in there. So just got to keep looking for those patterns there. Just got to it's I know it's a pretty tricky environment here at the moment, but still we still trade our leaders here. We see these leaders are still staying in there, Chris. So the leaders lead, as we know. Just got to stick with these sort of the sort of stronger stocks, the stocks that are sort of starting to break up, consolidate. So still plenty there for the trader here in this environment here. So I think it's pretty exciting.
Well, it's exciting times, and as you said, big rally last night. Last time we did some readers' questions. You covered the moving averages. To throw you on the spot and chuck a chart in front of you, AVR was one that got the most requests for a bit of a look at. So Gary's had no prep time on this. We've just thrown him in the deep end on AVR and asked him what he thinks. So you're talking about 50-day moving average. We can see it's under the red line.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of consolidation, but it's kind of maybe it's doing some spring and marginal lows. What's popping out to you?
The thing that's popping out to me is it's a corrective decline here. So this is trending down, and so far we've just seen lower high after lower high. So that's still negative, but the positive is in there. There's no real selling in there. There's no real selling in here. So it's just sort of winding back in here. So this is a corrective decline here, and eventually they pop and some volume comes in and away they go, and then you break above a swing high. So I mean, the safest place to wait is to break at least one swing high here. So, if I was waiting for this, rather than trying to jump in the stock here all the way down, safest way is to wait for a little break here. So we haven't even, the first I'd be looking at the stock would be this little break in here around 2260, and then 2550 would be, but I saw a nice little move here above this 2250 zone, 2260. I saw some good volume come in there. Might follow something like that. So, but corrective, which is good. But you want to see a little pop here, something impulsive, some decent rally. So not the worst chart here. Just it's to me, it's one of those stocks that sort of that I'll be watching pretty closely there. But
just to clarify, when you talk about corrective, it's an impulsive rally between May and June, July. Is that sort of impulsive move? And then since that high to where we are today, it's not as fast paced, it's more sideways. Is that what you mean by corrective?
Yeah, so if you look at this rally here from the low, that's really impulsive. It has a pullback there, it's very small, and goes again here. That's impulsive, and it pulls back here. And so that's our last high. This is our last low. So between that high and that low, there's spacing there now. So a strong, like a normal trend will sit on top of that move. So basically just build on top of the high. A strong trend will basically spacing between the highs and lows there. You can see how it's really impulsive. That's going up really fluidly. And then this goes down here. And what happens here is it goes, there's our low, our high, our low, our high, our low, our high. So the whole thing is overlapping. So it's going basically like a sideways sort of, trend there. So it's what we call a corrective trend, and then pop, we go impulsive there. So the good news is this trend, it's going up impulsively, down correctively, up impulsively, down correctively. So that's a positive thing is that normally sort of trends will break out, but when they go through a consolidation period, they normally break out in favor of the previous trend. So this is definitely trending up. So going up easily, going down in a sort of sideways corrective motion there. So I mean, McLaren used to teach this sort of impulsive corrective. I mean, maybe it was a lesson we should sort of cover there, but so important to understanding, markets and trends and stuff there. It's a big difference in understanding what an impulsive and what a corrective there. And then occasionally you get these sort of blow off moves, these vertical trends, a bit like what Cole's done there, which is sort of where each trend line is accelerates into a pop, into a high. So Nasdaq's done that sort of into that NOV high. Coal stocks have done that recently into that sort of high there. I saw that we sort of found, we ended up sort of doing, I think we pushed past the 90 days, but I think we went another 30 days into that high, Chris, which is sort of, usually the cycles, they either usually end up being an increment of that cycle, so either a third or a half. So it was either 30 or 45 days was what I thought would they peak, but they pretty much nailed the 30 days and that's it. They're done. So I'd be careful of coal. I know it's going to be up here today, but that whole thing is tipped over now. So I've got to be careful with coal stocks. You've got a pretty deep pullback. Maybe you go back and retest or put a lower high in or something like that. But yeah, that's the nature of trends. So just studying these corrective and impulsive trends are really important. There's a massive difference between them.
That was a good chart they've picked up, and a good lesson there. So
yeah, I mean the beautiful thing about corrective trends is that corrective trends basically they've got to break in one of two ways. So this will either break down and then
probably be impulsive.
That'll go back up and basically kiss the last low and then accelerate down, or this breaks up here, pulls back, sits on top of the previous high and then accelerates, So it's these are sort of things you're looking for, because these corrective trends are, particularly this has lasted a long time, I mean, this is a really interesting stock. So the viewers brought it to attention is pretty clued on here, because this is the sort of thing we sort of got to be monitoring for. But so this is one we just put on the watch list and wait for that sort of break here to occur. But you really want to see something impulsive and some volume come in here and then at least break above that 22.50 sort of high there. So that'll be the first bit there. I'm just sort of seeing a bit more. I mean, that's probably a little too high, 25.49, but not to say, so when they're impulsive like this, they can keep moving. So that's why I'll probably start with a little starting position. If I see an impulsive move, good volume, might add to it. Breaks above this high, you probably add to it again. Just keep moving your stop up, away you go. But pretty early yet. We're only hypotheticals here so far, but yeah.
Oh, that was a very good suggestion put forward. So thank you very much. What was it? It was Ross and Josephine Carr put that one forward. So thanks very much, Ross and Josephine, getting that one onto us first.
Yeah.
And we're not too far off market open, so we should wrap with that. I'll say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital, for running us through this very good list this morning and a viewer request.
Thanks, Chris.
Now, Gary's talking about strategies in more detail. There's a whole playlist on the right-hand side where we've broken down, chopped up some previous interviews where Gary's talked about like this in more detail, as well as VCPs and the like. And then also on the right-hand side, there's Gary's Tuesday playlist, which he goes through his Monday weekly report. And we do give an apologies or thanks for everyone who's shown interest in that. It takes a little bit of admin, and given the markets are on a tear at the moment, it's been hard to find the time for the back end to get those out. So thanks very much for the interest, and we'll come back to you again next week.
Yeah, I apologise there, Chris. I'll get up to date hopefully this weekend on those. I think anyone since the 3rd of November, I'm still happy to add them, but I'll make sure they're added for next week.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you, Gary Glover.
Thanks, mate. See you.